Hello, everyone. Welcome to this beautiful talk we will have on one topic that is going to be very exciting for you because it deals with what education is going on nowadays, and this is artificial intelligence. Today, we want to thank the Regional English Language Office for the sponsor of having with us these two wonderful specialists, Robin Cathey and John Bunting, who will talk about, our talk is using artificial intelligence in material development and classroom activities. I hope this talk is useful for all of you and enriches your teaching practices. Welcome. I leave you to. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabi. And thank you so much to the Regional English Language Office for making this happen for us. We are greatly appreciative. My name is Robin Cathey from Georgia State University, and I'm excited to be here as a specialist.
And I'm John Bunting, also from Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. We are both working in the intensive English program at Georgia State University, and we are both faculty in applied linguistics and ESL. And we're excited to be able to talk with you about this topic that feels like it's changing every day. So we're going to get started with a little bit of a talk about what it is. So I'm going to turn this over to Rob.
Thanks, John. So first, we're going to quickly go over the agenda. We're going to talk about what AI is. There's lots of different kinds of AI, and today we're going to be talking about generative AI. Then we're going to look at a study that we had from teachers all over the world as report from the field. And then we'll have a look at classroom and institutional policies on AI use and how important having a policy is. Then we'll look at AI in materials development and class activities and some example activities that you could do in your classroom. And then it will be your turn to look at a case study and decide how you might modify materials using AI. So first, I want to go ahead and make sure it's clear that we're talking here about text-based generative AI platforms. So these are platforms that specialize in creating and manipulating language through patterns and looking at responses that people have given over a large period of time. So it generates these coherent responses for teachers and produces various forms of written content. And how they work at a large level is these are large language models, or LLMs. And these are trained, like I said, on vast data sets. So they learn those patterns, the grammar, the facts, and when you give them a really good prompt, which we're going to talk about in a little while, they can predict the most probable sequence of words to generate a relevant and coherent output. So some popular examples are listed here: ChatGPT, Google Gemini. Google Gemini is my favorite. Claude is another really popular one in academic circles. Jasper, Copy.ai, GitHub for code generation. And now I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about our research.
Thanks, Robin. So, for all of us as teachers, the whole issue of artificial intelligence is overwhelming because we don't know exactly where it's going to land, what it's going to do for us in our field, for our students, for our jobs. So we decided we wanted to reach out to some of the teachers that we've known and find out how they're dealing with it, because it's wonderful to talk about things in the abstract, but we really feel it's important to look at what teachers are dealing with on the ground in their classrooms. So we surveyed teachers that we've had in various programs. We do a lot of teacher training around the world. And so we had 125 teachers responding from many different countries. We had actually a lot from Brazil, a lot from sub-Saharan Africa. And we asked them questions about what they saw as concerns, benefits, and the policies that they've tried to start with, and any sort of innovative uses that they might have done. So, just a little bit about the background of these teachers. And one of the things I want to say is, it's wonderful that the teachers, and you all know as teachers, we're all very busy. They took time out of their schedules to work on this survey for us because they realized, just as we do and as you do, this is revolutionizing how our classrooms and our students are going to be learning in the future. Most of our teachers are high school students, but we had a nice range. We had elementary school teachers, middle school, university, and adult teachers. So we're going to take a look at the responses. The first thing we're going to look at are the concerns that they have about AI. And for many of us, and I include myself in this, change is hard. Change can be scary. So we're going to look at how, while we see that there are benefits, we also know that there are a lot of challenges and concerns when something is coming in so quickly and making such a big change. So we're going to summarize the key concerns that our teachers that we surveyed regard viewing this impact of AI on students, classrooms, and teachers. So the first thing is the impact. We looked at the category of learning and skill development. And not surprisingly, many teachers were concerned that using AI is going to create an over-reliance on the tool, and what many teachers were describing as a shift towards a laziness in their students, so that instead of actually doing the hard work, they're going to be using the tools of AI to create something that we traditionally have hoped that they would be creating themselves. We also were concerned that it could diminish critical thinking and creativity for our students. You know, these essential skills that they need to learn, if they're able to use AI to create something and they're not actually creating it themselves, it's going to be a loss for them. They also, in conjunction with some other issues that are going on today, they expressed concern that students would start to lose interest in and skill for doing deep research, and also exploring and critiquing primary research. Because one of the challenges with AI is that you get this sort of summarized version of research, but you don't actually look at what the research really was. You only look at how the research is now being summarized. Another issue was that, and this, I like the way teachers were putting this, that AI would be used just as a manner to get answers rather than mastering subjects, which is, I've been asked a question by my teacher, I'm going to go to AI, I'm going to get the answer, and I'm done. But they haven't really mastered what we're hoping that they would be doing. And finally, and for me this is particularly poignant because it's a concern over the loss of human interaction. So instead of talking to people about these concepts that we want them to explore and the language and the skills and communicating, they're going to a machine. So that they're not engaging directly with people, they're just engaging with the machines that are creating human-like responses. In addition, another main category were ethical and accuracy concerns. Obviously, plagiarism is a big issue. I know at our university, every single department is working to figure out how do we make sure that plagiarism is not on the rise with the use of AI. We want to make sure that it's a tool that can be used, but we also want to make sure that they're not just plagiarizing. One of the fears is that it's so easy, and sometimes it's overt, and sometimes it's not, to have academic dishonesty when you're using AI tools. And it kind of normalizes less rigor in your academic pursuits. There's also a big concern
and we're from the United States, so we know this very well, that there may be inaccurate or biased information that can, through the AI lens, appears to be more neutral. So there's a concern too that, and this is becoming more and more evident, that AI can produce hallucinated data. So they're creating things that fall outside the realm of reality, but they're giving it the sheen of reality or truth. It's also sometimes very difficult to verify the factual truth in AI-generated materials, which, in addition to obviously having that effect, it also adds to the time that teachers have to spend trying to find out what's real and what's not real, even though everything looks so wonderful and clear. There's also the deliberate misinformation concern, that there are things that AI is going to be using data, because it's all data driven, that's from someone or some institution that has an agenda that is going to then try to create a false sense of reality for whatever purpose that they have. And finally, there's that concern that there's that lack of responsibility and the development of critical thinking, which ties into what we talked about earlier, that because it's so easy and it's so quick, we just look at it and say, okay, we've got it, and we move on. So there were some concerns, and rightfully so. I think all of our teachers who responded acknowledged there are potential benefits to the use of AI. One of the other things they also acknowledge is it's here. It's not going away. We can't roll back the clock. But they also noticed that there are these really significant challenges. So they're looking at this, how do we approach this while making sure that we are not diminishing the opportunities for critical thinking and ethical use while we're trying to teach our students and our students are trying to learn. And finally, one of the other challenges, and this is, I would say, within our field, but also within our individual institutions, the need for a real clear dialogue so that we're able to be consistent across our teaching groups and across the field in how we're addressing this issue. But they do love a lot of these tools. So there are a lot of benefits that our teachers are seeing. It has a lot of advantages, and in terms of preparing for your class, the actual teaching, and just overall efficiency for us as teachers. So, as teachers, we never have enough time. So this is an incredible time-saving tool for us, provided we use it well. It can help us with lesson planning, material development, the organizing of data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative assessments of our students. It also allows easy access to diverse and specific content so that we're able to find things much more easily than when we had to do Google searches. And of course, in my case, before that, when we went to the library and looked through card catalogs. So it just opens all of that up so much more easily than in the past. And the other exciting part of this, and something that develops day by day, is in content generation. You can ask AI to develop your lesson plans, to develop your syllabus, to develop your learning outcomes, all of those kinds of things, quizzes, worksheets. And it's so easy. It's easy, and sometimes it's so easy that we may forget, if we run out of time, that we have to still really filter this through our critical thinking skills. So enhancing teaching and learning using AI, it really helps you develop, it can be a tool to help you develop individualized individualized student learning plans. And one of the things that we've learned from teachers we've talked about is a greater awareness of neurodiversity and just the broad range of needs that students bring. And this is a tool that can help us identify how to work more effectively with the diverse students that we deal with. It can also be useful in clarifying for us as teachers and for our students as well, complex or unfamiliar topics. Again, it requires critical thinking, but it is a great tool for that. It can show us as teachers new approaches to teaching and learning, and to plan lessons more effectively, and it can offer creative ideas for classroom activities, classroom dynamics. All of these things, these are things that can be enhanced with the use of AI. And finally, it can help us address cultural issues and ways to make learning more relevant and engaging for our students. And in this case, I think particularly of materials that we see that are developed for a very, very large audience, oftentimes coming from either the United States or the UK, and then being able to take materials and make them more relevant to our specific group of students. It's also very efficient, and it provides support for us, so it makes things faster when we're going from either doing research, creating materials. If it's used well, it can make our lives easier. And the reality is for teachers, and I know certainly here, but I think in many other contexts, there are so many complications, and that if we can find ways to make those easier, that is going to be very, very useful for us. It can also provide useful tips and feedback, so to help us learn how to better develop our courses. And remember, we're talking today about the use of AI with text, but it also is expanding into almost every type of communication, visual, audio, all of that. And it can also help us identify strategies to address complex topics. Again, whether it's about topics of culture, topics about current events, or about linguistic challenges of vocabulary and grammar and all of that. So, the teachers that we looked at saw this as a very powerful tool. It's going to help, and some of them it's already happening. It's going to be in efficient preparation and resource management. It can improve our teaching methodologies. It can help build better student learning outcomes, and it can also help us measure those learning outcomes. It can streamline our daily tasks, whether it's in grading or material development, so that in general, the positives that they see is that this is going to be able to make a better learning environment for our students if we use this correctly. One of the things we asked these wonderful teachers was how they're actually using it already. And a lot of them were very kind to share some of the ways that they've been using it. And you know, it's not easy. There are challenges. Technology can bewilder many of us, but they shared a lot of wonderful things. One of them was from Narissa, who's from Zambia, a high school teacher. And what she explained was she takes the topic, she explains what she wants to do, and she goes into one of the AI programs and says, create a PowerPoint for me. And then they, in a matter of a few seconds, they've created a full PowerPoint slide, not just slide, a whole presentation for her. And then she, of course, goes through it, looks through it, makes sure she agrees with what's going on, makes changes as needed. But what would have taken her 20 or 30 minutes to create was done in much less time. Another Zambian teacher, Valentina, shared with us how she's able to create assessment tools, but she's able to also, when she's creating the assessment tools, instead of using just the content that's coming from one of those US or UK based textbooks that is focused on US and UK environments, she was able to take this. I know these are small, but these are items that she was able to use that were based on Zambian ideas, Zambian environments. So it makes it more relevant to her students, and it adds to the whole dynamic component of the lesson. And again, it's done very quickly. And my favorite one is by a wonderful teacher named Lydia from Indonesia. I had the good fortune of working with her last summer when she was in Atlanta. One of the things that she did that I thought was just so beautiful was she's a writer. Many of us are writers as well as teachers. So she wrote a story. She used AI to get some suggestions about her story and giving good prompts so that they knew, the AI tools knew what level her students were at, how long she wanted things to be. And then she was the one who created it, but she got some support. And then she was able to ask the AI tools to create illustrations for her book. So she created a whole story about this beautiful little girl, Cinta, who ended up having a terrible accident. But all of the illustrations were created by AI so that she had a book that was really engaging for her students. So I'm glad I was able to share some of that information. And now Robin is going to talk to you a little bit about how we implement policies for using AI in our classrooms and beyond.
Okay, I'm back. So we're going to talk a little bit about policies. So it's really important to have, to set the tone with your students and tell them what is appropriate when using AI in your classroom. So some of the policies from the field that the teachers gave to us from over 125 countries, you can see them here. I'll read a few in case the people on YouTube can't see them well. The policy is simple. They can use it as long as they mention the source, state that they use AI, and give credit to the author or web page. Another teacher says, I tell my students that they can use AI to learn, get ideas, or check grammar, but they must not copy full answers. Their work should be in their own words. If they use AI, they should say how they used it. Cheating is not allowed. And the next one, I allow them to use it, sometimes give tasks to do in AI, but usually there's a task that follows the AI one. For example, if the text is written by AI, I ask to make a video where the students will show what was in the text and narrate it. So these are some different examples that teachers we're connected with use in their classrooms. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about our institution, Georgia State University. We have kind of a continuum that teachers can choose from. So some teachers might say, you absolutely may not use AI in this class, and some teachers might say, okay, in specific situations. So on one side of the continuum, we have an example statement here that prohibits AI usage in the course. And I'll read that for those of you on YouTube. You're not allowed to use generative AI tools like ChatGPT for any work in this course, including both graded and ungraded work. Prohibited AI usage includes idea or text generation, writing or revising your work, development of media assets, or data analysis and presentation. Now, this is really important because this teacher gave all of the different ways that students might think to use AI and might not think that it's that big of a deal. But the teacher identifies all of those so that it's really clear to students that they're not allowed to use AI in any step of their work. Teachers might also choose to allow for limited usage of AI in their classes. And here are some examples. The first one is in specific assignments. So you may use a generative AI tool like ChatGPT only when it's specifically permitted as part of an assignment. Or for early idea or draft development. So some teachers will say, yeah, in the beginning, you can use this in your drafts and to get some ideas. But what I like about this is you will be required to turn in the prompts you used, the AI's response, and all subsequent drafts so the teacher can see your work. So they can make sure that the student is using AI in appropriate ways and not just copying. And here are a couple more examples from Georgia State University that we give to teachers that they can choose from. One is only with AI attribution or citation. So that's pretty clear. They either need to have an APA, an MLA, or Chicago style footnotes to make sure that they're citing properly AI usage. And then only with advanced instructor permission. So you have to contact your teacher in advance and talk through how you're planning on using AI. So this is a fun slide because we made this slide with AI. So you can see here, this slide was generated in part by ChatGPT. We made a few changes, but overall, this is pretty much generated by ChatGPT. And it talks about how AI technology helps teachers. It helps us give instant feedback. It helps us with lesson planning, with grammar and vocabulary practice, and adapting tasks to different levels in large classrooms. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. In this next section, we're going to talk about how to create effective prompts and material modification. So before you ever start working with generative AI, it's really important to start thinking about your prompts. So you've got to think about what you want and write it out or type it out and be really detailed and specific, because AI has so much information and it will give you way more than you actually need. So you have to filter that with your prompt. AI will give you all that information, tell it what you want it to do and what you don't want it to do. Sometimes I will tell in my prompt, don't add anything to this. If you have any questions, ask me. And that way it won't add any extra information that I go and say, where did it get this? I didn't want it to do this. So I always ask the AI after my prompt, do you have any questions about this task? And it always does. It asks me 1, 2, 3, 4, and I tell it the answers, and then it can give me a more tailored response. So definitely make sure that you are asking AI if it has any questions. And whenever you're uploading documents to these generative AI platforms, make sure that you're telling it what you are uploading beforehand. So I have a couple of example prompts here. I have a bad prompt and a good prompt. So the bad prompt is, make this worksheet at an A2 level. So a teacher uploads it and says, make this A2 because it's B1 or B2, right? That's not a great prompt. You're probably gonna have to do a lot of fixing of that worksheet. A better prompt would be, I teach ESL to a group of 4th graders in a public school in Mexico. The worksheet I have is too advanced for them. I will upload the worksheet and I want you to rewrite the worksheet at a lower level about an A2 for my students. Try to use vocabulary that they might use in their lives. Do you have any questions about this task? And then AI will ask you the questions, you'll give it the answers, and then it can do the task for you. So when we're looking at AI for materials development, we've talked about how important it is to have a really good prompt. So once we've gotten past that really good prompt, I'm going to give you some examples here. So a teacher comes to us and the teacher says, the material my school gives me is way too advanced for my students. They can't do it. They don't provide enough communicative activities. They give me a book. It's a lot of like writing and drills of grammar, but I don't have any communicative activities and it's not accessible for my students. So a good prompt for that could be, my school wants me to teach tenses using a grammar-focused approach. However, the materials are too advanced and I want to focus on task-based and communicative approaches. Please create a new worksheet and some activities for my A1 7th grade students based on the worksheet I will upload. Do you have any questions? And that would be a really robust prompt before you upload your worksheet. So we have a little example here of a worksheet. The worksheet has 5 basic tenses and then 4 perfect tenses. and it's not accessible for this teacher, but the school has given it to them, and it's the materials that they have, and they can't go out and buy new books for their students. So using that prompt, and the next one, you can see here that the generative AI came up with a new worksheet for these students. And go back to the other one. You can see here it talks about Sarah. She couldn't understand why her car wouldn't stop. And cars and 7th graders maybe didn't make as much sense content-wise, and the grammar also didn't make as much sense for this group of students. Next one. But here you can start to see how they're using present simple, so taking a step back and looking at these in their everyday life. And it also includes pictures as well for them to kind of anchor those sentences onto. It also gave a section for present continuous as well, and really clear directions. Pictures are included. I didn't include them here, but AI did that using that other worksheet. And finally, here we have several different activities. It gave a whole lot, but I went and snapshotted a few of them. And these are all different kinds of communicative activities that you could use focused on these grammar points, cutting them out, having students work in groups. It is a little bit of preparation on the side of the teacher, but it's giving that teacher so much more than they have with just a book. So in this next example, we're going to talk about modifying for content. So we were kind of looking at grammar there, a little bit of content. We're really going to focus on content because a lot of you might be teachers who work not in schools. So for example, business English. So if you're teaching business English and you don't have one of those super expensive books, or you have one, but it's not on the level of your students, or you just need to create resources for your business English students, then you can use a prompt to help you with that. So this prompt is, I need to teach my adult EFL students about articles in English. I would like to make the materials and activities more tailored to business English. Please rewrite the examples I give you and tailor them to include business English vocabulary. Please include some content about entrepreneurship because I'm working with a bunch of entrepreneurs. The examples should be broad enough to fit multiple business contexts. Do you have any questions? And then you would answer those questions. So the next slide shows what the example sentences that we uploaded. So a man came by today. I would like an apple, please. We're looking at the articles, right? But this language is really not tailored for business English. So when we upload those, next slide, we get some modified content that is more tailored to business English. An investor came by today. I have an entrepreneurial spirit. My partner knows a good contact for that problem. A client of mine visited. This can be used in multiple business settings, and we're still looking at that article with the noun in red. And our last example for today is this teacher comes to us and says, the resources I have are not relevant to the needs of my rural students who speak an indigenous language, right? This could be, we don't always have materials that are really tailored for that student population. So a good prompt here could be, my students are 2nd grade CEAL speakers, and I would like to make this worksheet more relevant to their context. Can you take a look in modified for 2nd grade CEAL speakers? Do not translate into CEAL because AI will translate it. Please create the new text so I can copy and paste it. Do you have any questions? So this is the worksheet that we're looking at. Let's look at number 3, for example. Your teacher is giving a presentation. She invites you. Now here we're asking the students to write an acceptance to this invitation, but it's really not very connected to 2nd grade CEAL speakers. So on the next slide, you can see for number 3, your teacher is telling a story after school. She invites you. write an acceptance. That might be a little bit more common than your teachers giving a presentation. Another example in situation 2, rather than you're going to play soccer in a field, you're going to play a game like canal or with a ball in an open field on Sunday. So these might be a little bit more tailored to your students and what they do every day. You can also change the names to names of people in that community so that rather than using Jessica and Sarah, they're using names of people in that community. And it definitely connects to people more. And now I'm going to hand it over to John, who is going to give you a chance to explore how you would use AI in these contexts.
Thanks, Robin. Those were wonderful. That was so neat to see all those different ways. And I hope it's giving you some ideas about how you can, even in just small ways, you can use AI to help you make a little shift that's going to be more engaging for students or more relevant, more respectful of their environments, as well as focusing on the areas of language that you really want to focus on and the vocabulary. So now what we're going to do, we have some wonderful people who are here, so I'm going to put you to work. We are going to think about a couple of ideas. A teacher realizes that her example grammar sentences could be more tailored to young people in Mexico City in 2025. So what I want you to think about, and if you're on YouTube watching this, you can pop something in the chat room, but the people here, I'm going to have you turn to somebody right around you and you guys can talk about it. How would you create a prompt using what Robin was just talking about, sort of those strategies for prompt writing that would help you make some, perhaps a generic textbook's grammar sentences? How could you make those more relevant to young people in Mexico City in 2025? I also realize young people in Mexico City, that's actually kind of broad, so you can make it even more specific. So take a couple of minutes and you're going to see what you can come up with a prompt. And then I'm going to ask a few of you to come give me some ideas for your prompts. So turn to that person next to you. Say hello. Say hello. And figure out, how are you going to make this better? Just discuss it, but come up with a prompt. Come up with a prompt.
Public universities. Would you ask the AI to make that text more engaging to students in Mexico, young students in Mexico?
Remember, more specific is better.
Maybe we want to know more about using the word reinforcing Well, for example, the activities we were we were working there. We were working. When we were talking first, we were working with operations, and then I thought, how can I make this more challenging for the students? Just on the same topic, but
Because remember, the goal is you want the AI to answer your questions, but if it's really broad, we're going to try and answer a lot of other questions. Make it as focused as you can. And the people in YouTube can put it in the chat room so we can see it. I think we have someone in the audience named Tanya who is interested in sharing hers. Just a minute.
And I think the level was very low.
In the context of
So I have to say, could you please make the text a little more?
grammar sentences in the context of student learning.
I think it's very easy
Academic
for A2 students. So in some cases, I think it is not actually.
You guys ready? Give us something.
Not yet.
Okay. Sentence is more relevant.
Yeah, that's what
Considering
we're asking AI to. For example, occupations according to or subjects. According to the subject students.
Okay, sorry for this. I'm not
Studies
used
here
to
at the university, for example, pedagogy, social education, administrative,
change.
education,
Exercise.
administrative.
more relevant
In
for
some cases, I
for Mexico Cityers.
the words that I want it to include. But when I think that the text is so easy, I have to
Anybody want to
ask
volunteer?
again, can you please redo it?
Yes.
What's your name, sir? Jorge. Jorge, what do you have?
Well, we were discussing, and I'm gonna give it a try, okay? So, please modify the following sentences so as to make them more familiar to young students in Mexico City in 2025. And we decided to add something more in a scholar context of healthy food intake.
Nice. So is that the prompt?
Yes.
Very nice. Anybody want to add anything to that? One of the things I learned from Robin is at the end of it, you should ask, do you have any questions? So anytime you have a prompt, put that in there. Tanya, do you have something there?
Yes, I was talking with Alma about our students who are from Mexico, well, not only from Mexico City, but from other parts of Mexico, yes, and we were trying to do a prompt on a specific an English exercise, but specifically for this kind of students, yes. So we thought about changing or put something information about the condition of these students here in the university, yes, and at the end asking, do you have any question or something like that. But we talk about the diversity in our students, yes, not only a general young student, but students from many places, and students that are bilingual already in other languages, for example, and that's all.
That's wonderful. I think that's great.
Yeah, I have never thought about the last question, like, do you have any questions? Because in my case, when I ask the AI to do something, In some cases, for example, I said, could you please change this text to be an A2 level? And then I read the text and also the questions, and I can see that it is very easy. I think that this is not for A2, I think this is for A1. Then I said, could you please redo it, but please with a high difficulty or something like that.
And was it work? Did it work?
Yeah.
So that's also a good question. When you revise it, you can make this more difficult, right? Oh, that's wonderful. Jorge.
The question that I ask is not exactly if it has any questions, but if it is clear for what it has to do. And then what I get as a result is like a summary of what the intelligence got, and just double check if it's correct or not. And something I noticed with the ChatGPT, for instance, is that now we have a chance to create projects. And through projects, you can upload documents and then just prepare a profile of the project and describe what a project is about. So what I've done is that I tell the intelligence about my students, more or less what kind of level, characteristics, details, in particular because I teach at a physical education school, well, normal school. And so I tell it about it. And so whenever I get now responses, it always contextualizes it for that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so providing as much detail as possible for the context is going to help.
And sometimes I will say something like, after I talk about my students, like you mentioned, ask me 5 questions about my students to get to know them better. And then, and because I don't always think about what I should be telling it, but the AI will be like, oh, here's a gap. Do we have a prompt from YouTube? I'm a high school teacher in a government school. The students are 15 to 17. I need to teach the difference between the modal verbs would and ought to. Help me create an A2 material. Great job, Josue. I like that.
That's
Thanks.
wonderful. And at the end, he should ask, do you have any questions?
Do you have any questions? It's a good one.
That's wonderful. Are there another? Because maybe we can take a look at the second one, which is your textbook. And again, I'm thinking of textbooks that are kind of general for general audiences. The textbook has a great unit that includes a story with the related activities on grammar and vocabulary. However, the story is set in New York City and deals with issues that are not common or relevant for your students. What could you do with that with AI? So again, take a couple minutes, work with that wonderful partner, the colleague. And those of you on YouTube, Josue's was wonderful. If you have ideas, you can put them in there too. I can see Javier's brain is percolating.
I would describe my students first, the level of my students,
you're way better than
their age, what they are studying.
It's still important, no? If you're learning a language,
make it more adapted.
I mean, if you are in Mexico City, don't make everything about Mexico City just because you are considering the context of it.
I know that they like sports, they like dancing, they like banda music, whatever. The more
make it more relevant for American students who don't live in the background. Make it for the same as
The demographics, no?
Well, one thing I think to ask AI to act as John Bunting teaching as a specialist and help me with
It's like suburbs or even the other states in the world. How to say link to the city and then they
And again, how do you know if this is relevant or not? If the task says deals with issues that are not common or relevant for your students.
I'm going to ask the folks here in the audience here if anyone has something they would like to share. Oh, Isabel wants to share something.
Well, we thought of two possibilities.
Two possibilities, yes.
One could be to ask the AI for more relevant issues in Mexico City, but another one is the possibility for our students to know about culture in New York. Okay, so there are like, it depends on where you want to focus to, because on the second one, the focus would be in culture and interculturality.
Yes.
So that topic, that example might be of interest for the students, no? But the other one asks them to match Mexico City context or topics.
Excellent.
Yeah, I like that. And you could go even further by having it select a story set in New York that's common also in Mexico, so they can kind of bridge that gap as well.
Traffic.
Mm-hmm. Traffic.
Anyone else? Did anyone have anything that you suggested uploading anything? Because remember, when you talk with AI, you can upload things.
Yeah, a couple things ago, Margaret said something about the ability for us to provide some sort of images, text, whatever, to create projects. My question is ChatGPT the only tool I can use as teacher to create projects, or are there any other ways for me to create them?
I like Gemini a lot.
Gemini.
Uh-huh.
Google has Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a Gmail account, and it's also more expansive if you have the free account. Because ChatGPT, unless you want to pay for it, is more limited. I think they give you 4 queries per day.
And talking about specific applications for teachers, is there any specific application for teachers, or?
I think you should make one.
You can ask ChatGPT to make it for you.
Yeah. I'm sure there will be many in the next couple of years.
Well, and I do know that, and I'm not 100% sure why, but a lot of academics prefer Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E, as their sort of AI tool of choice. C-L-A-U-D-E, Claude. And I think partly because I think it has a more robust sort of academic research side to it. But again, that's just, I've heard that from my colleagues, that they like that.
Great question.
Yeah. I don't know if there was anything.
There is a contribution. Want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. The prompt will be act as a material creator and scan the following material in the picture and recreate a material adapted for A2 high school students who live in a Mexican context, specifically in Mérida, Yucatan.
Ooh, I love how specific.
Yeah.
Very good.
If even in la esquina.
That's wonderful. That's a great one. And the more, and then at the end, do you have any questions?
Okay, we have to add that.
But also, it's that very specific information is going to help get you closer to where you want to be. And then obviously, as the teacher or material developer, you then have to take that and make it even better by looking at it and finding out, is this really the information that I want? Yeah, but it's a wonderful tool. Thank you, guys. Well, again, my name is John Bunting. Sorry. My name is John Bunting. I'm from Georgia State University, and my colleague is
Robin Cathey, also from Georgia State University, and we are so excited to get to network and collaborate with our Mexican counterparts and colleagues here at UPN. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it is always a great pleasure and a great honor to be at the Universidad Pedagógica Nacional. These are the most wonderful colleagues in the world. And we have on the PowerPoint, there are our email addresses. We believe, as you can see from our survey, we believe in it. We should have a global community of language educators. And so if you have questions, you may ask them now. And we're just honored to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gobierno de México.